I grew up on a property about 100 k's west of Wagga, near a place called Boree Creek. We farmed sheep, cropping, a bit of cattle. I really loved it. I really loved being out on the farm. I would never trade growing up in a rural area for anything. I think it's a wonderful way of life and a wonderful way for kids to grow up. My childhood and growing up on a property definitely made me more resilient than I might otherwise have been. You know, you couldn't really go away on holiday quite as easily and do all those kinds of things with your family. You know, you couldn't leave in the summer because of, you know, fire or if you were feeding out or, you know. Most of my teenage years, my family were going through drought. That was a big thing that shaped the way I am today, and I guess you learn how to cope and you learn a lot about perspective. There were definitely times that those things became difficult. I think I became a bit more aware of it when I went to high school and when I was at boarding school, and I saw the way that my friends around me grew up, and they seemed to not have the same difficulties that we did. It took a bit of explaining sort of to get on the same page as my friends who lived in town, even though that's also just a regional town. I'm not talking about the big city or something like that. An urban way of life is just a little different. I always thought from the very moment that I went to school that it was such a privilege to be able to go off to boarding school. So I always tried my hardest and did my best, because I knew, you know, boarding schools are not cheap, not a cheap place to go, but it was the best opportunity for me, and probably the best my parents could do for me was to send me there, and so I was going to try and do my best and make them proud. I was so excited because they had these, you know, day trips to the snow. They had a ski team, and, you know, it all sort of became a lot more reachable and achievable to go skiing more than 1 week a year. And it's not the easiest thing to pursue in Australia. So I didn't. I went off to uni and I studied law and media communications, and everyone said, "Oh, what are you going to do when you finish uni?" And I said, "I'm going to go be a ski instructor." And from there, it just kind of continued. I was instructing in Australia in Falls Creek, and then I jumped over to Austria, and then I went back and forth for a few years, and then I sort of started to get into some different things in Austria with the competing and the competitions that I used to do. So the big mountain competitions, for people who don't ski, you're judged on things like the cliffs that you drop, so your air and your style, the tricks that you might do. So sometimes they're doing backflips and 360s and things like that. But I have always loved, you know, running and swimming and jumping and all those kinds of things, and, you know, pair that with being a bit competitive sport is ideal. But I often think of one thing that I would kind of come back to whenever people would ask, you know, "Oh, how did you," because I used to do a lot of running as well, sort of, "How'd you get so quick?" and all this kind of thing. And I thought, actually, my dad used to, you know, if there was a stray sheep or a lamb or something in the paddock, we'd get as close as we could with the ute or the motorbike or whatever, and often he'd just get me to jump out and chase after them and you know, tackle them, which is great when you've got a big, huge open space. You learn to get pretty quick, pretty fast. I think it was a bit of a novelty for my parents. It was catch that chook, catch that sheep, you know? So it was quite fun for me, but explaining that story to people who don't have that background or upbringing, they sort of go, "Okay, right, you're right." But if I was to say that to another kid who grew up on a sheep property, they'd probably think, "Oh, yeah, I did that as well." I get exactly where you're coming from. You kind of get to a point sometimes in your life, and I was doing a lot of things that were very superficial sometimes when you're in this commercial world, or you're doing some modelling, or, you know, you're skiing here and skiing, and I just thought, I want to do something with a bit more substance. I want to give back. I want to do something positive. And teaching seemed like the right avenue to go down to do that. You can really change a child's life for the better.